Vitamin D is one of the most ancient molecules in the history of life on Earth. It is estimated that the first photosynthetic marine organisms were already producing vitamin D approximately 500 to 750 million years ago, likely as an involuntary byproduct of exposure to UV rays. This suggests that its cutaneous synthesis through sunlight is not an invention of vertebrates, but an evolutionarily primordial mechanism. In humans, vitamin D proved so essential that fair skin in northern populations is likely the result of evolutionary selective pressure. Less pigmentation means greater vitamin D production under scarce sunlight. The modern history of vitamin D is inextricably linked to rickets, a devastating bone disease that affected enormous numbers of children in the industrial cities of Europe during the 17th and 18th centuries. Polluted air and indoor living drastically reduced sun exposure. In 1822, the Polish physician Jędrzej Śniadecki observed that rural children were far less affected by rickets than urban ones, and hypothesized a role for sunlight, but was ignored for decades. In 1919, the German physicist Kurt Huldschinski demonstrated that irradiating rachitic children with UV lamps cured the disease. In 1921, Elmer McCollum, the same scientist who had discovered vitamins A and B, isolated vitamin D, named D because it was the fourth letter of the alphabet, following the progressive nomenclature of vitamins. In 1923, Harry Steenbock discovered that irradiating any food containing ergosterol with UV light, including milk, enriched it with vitamin D, a method that revolutionized public health and led to the fortification of milk, a practice still common today. Adolf Windaus received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1928 for clarifying the chemical structure of vitamin D and its steroidal precursors. What it really is, vitamin or hormone? Here lies one of the great paradoxes of biology. Vitamin D is technically not a vitamin. Vitamins, by definition, are substances the body cannot synthesize on its own and must obtain through diet. Vitamin D, on the other hand, is produced autonomously by the skin under the action of UVB rays. Biologically, it is a steroidal prohormone with a mechanism of action entirely similar to that of sex hormones. It exists in two main forms: D2, ergocalciferol, of plant and fungal origin, and D3, cholecalciferol, of animal origin and the form produced by human skin. D3 is significantly more effective at raising blood levels. The process is fascinating and occurs in multiple stages. The skin contains 7-dehydrocholesterol, a cholesterol derivative. When UVB rays, wavelength 290 to 315 nm, strike the skin, this molecule is transformed into pre-vitamin D3, which body heat rapidly converts into vitamin D3. D3 enters the bloodstream, reaches the liver, where it is hydroxylated into calcidiol, 25-OHD, the storage form measured by blood tests. It then travels to the kidneys, where a second hydroxylation produces calcitriol, 1,25-OHD, the biologically active form. Calcitriol acts through the vitamin D receptor, VDR, present in nearly every cell in the body, a fact that explains the enormous variety of its effects. The classic and best-known function is the regulation of calcium and phosphorus metabolism. Vitamin D promotes intestinal calcium absorption, up to 40% without it, compared to just 10 to 15%, which is essential for the mineralization of bones and teeth. Deficiency leads to rickets in children and to osteomalacia and osteoporosis in adults. But the modern scientific picture is far broader. The VDR has been identified in immune, muscular, cardiac, cerebral, pancreatic cells, and even in tumor cells. This has opened decades of research across multiple fronts. On the immune front, vitamin D stimulates the production of antimicrobial peptides, such as cathelicidin, enhances the innate response against bacteria and viruses, and modulates the adaptive response by reducing excessive inflammatory reactions. It is no coincidence that vitamin D levels drop in winter, exactly when respiratory infections increase. Regarding the muscular system, Adequate levels improve muscle strength and coordination, reducing the risk of falls in the elderly, a clinically significant aspect of great practical importance. There are robust epidemiological associations, though still partly under investigation, between vitamin D deficiency and increased risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, depression, and certain forms of cancer, particularly colorectal, breast, and prostate. Vitamin D deficiency is considered a silent pandemic. It is estimated that approximately 1 billion people worldwide have insufficient levels. This is not limited to northern latitudes. It is extremely widespread even in sunny countries such as Italy, India, and the Middle East, due to the modern lifestyle, hours spent indoors, use of sunscreen, covering clothing. Blood levels are measured as 25 OHD in serum. Below 20 ng/ml is considered deficiency, between 20 and 30 ng/ml insufficiency, and between 30 and 60 ng/ml the optimal range. Toxicity is rare but possible above 100-150 ng/ml, manifesting as hypercalcemia. Foods naturally rich in vitamin D are few. Fatty fish such as salmon, mackerel, herring, and sardines, cod liver oil, eggs, yolk, and mushrooms exposed to UV light. Many countries fortify other foods, milk, cereals, juices, to compensate for widespread deficiency. Pharmaceutical supplementation with cholecalciferol, D3, is today among the most widely recommended in the world, especially during pregnancy, childhood, old age, and the winter months. Commonly recommended doses range from 600-800 IU/day as per official guidelines, up to 2,000-4,000 IU/day as suggested by many clinicians to achieve optimal levels. One surprising fact is that mushrooms are the only plant-based foods capable of producing significant amounts of vitamin D2 when exposed to sunlight, and they continue to produce it even after harvest. Placing mushrooms in the sun for 15-20 minutes can quintuple their vitamin D content. Dark skin produces vitamin D less efficiently under the same light intensity. A person with phototype VI, very dark complexion, may require 5 to 10 times more sun exposure than a person with phototype I to synthesize the same amount. This has important implications for African and Asian populations living at northern latitudes. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, meaning it is best absorbed when taken with a meal containing fats, and that the body can store it in adipose tissue for months, a precious evolutionary advantage for surviving long winters. Finally, one of the most elegant details of physiology. On days of intense sun exposure, the skin automatically activates a self-regulation mechanism that degrades excess pre-vitamin D into inactive metabolites, making it virtually impossible to overdose on vitamin D through sunlight. Unlike supplements taken in excessive doses,